We've got a lot packed into today's session. I'm really excited to be doing it with you all. But what I'd like to start with is just a few quiz questions. So get your thinking caps on. And the first question is, which invertebrates like to live in wasps' nests? So if you were in our session yesterday, then hopefully you will have some idea. But which invertebrates like to live in wasp nests? You can put two hands up if you think it's hoverflies. You can put one hand up if you think it is butterflies. And you can put your hand on your head if you think it is black flies. And teachers, if you're able to write your class's answers in the chat, that would be lovely. Okay, three. Oh, wow, very quick this morning. And it looks like everyone is saying hoverflies. And let's see if you are correct. Yes, well done. It is hoverflies. And once a wasp colony has ended, their nest is often used by other species, including hoverflies. And the hornet hoverfly actually feeds on debris in an active nest without getting stung. It's pretty amazing. Okay, next question. A hoverfly larvae is also known as a rat-tailed maggot. But where do these larvae live? Is it in a river estuary? And an estuary is where the river meets the sea. So two hands up for that. Is it fast flowing water? One hand up for that. Or is it still water? And that is hands on your head. Where do these larvae live? We've got a mix of answers coming in between fast flowing and still. And one of those is right. It looks like it's about 50-50 at the moment. So fast flowing and still water. The correct answer is still water. So hoverflies need access to still water for their young to survive. And we can help by creating hoverfly lagoons. And there's a link on our website with a recording of yesterday's lesson to show you how to do that and help provide habitats for those larvae. Brilliant answers. Thank you so much, everyone. Just a reminder that this week we would like you to find an area in your grounds or local area to make place for nature, and also make a plan for how you can create that place. And then you can send your plans to us to be in with a chance of winning a copy of The Man Who Planted Trees, a wonderful book, and also some wildflower seeds to plant in your grounds. And there's a resource to accompany this, and Nicola is just going to share that in the chat now. But what are we going to be doing today? Well, I'm really excited about today's lesson because we're going to be talking about moss, and we're going to be learning about some of the amazing properties of moss. We're going to be looking at the wonderful world inside moss, and then we're going to be thinking about moss's role in the environment. And I'm so excited about today's lesson. I've called it Mighty Moss, Small but Super. And that's because I believe that it is an incredible thing, moss, and it is indeed very, very super. And we're going to kick off with a question. So, which superpower would you like to have, and what would you do with it? Would you like to detach part of your body and grow a clone of yourself? So maybe separate your arm and then grow a new you from that arm. Would you like to survive without water for weeks and weeks and weeks? And what would you do if you could do that? Or would you like to build a whole new world? Which of those superpowers would you like? And what would you like to do with it? So there's a very clear mix. It's people are either saying C or A. So B is not of interest, but people would either like to, yeah, detach part of their body and grow a clone of themselves. I think that could certainly be quite useful. But lots of you have also said build a new world. And the amazing thing is that moss can do all of these three things. So it can detach a small part of itself, which can be either blown over some land to then grow and be a new clone of the original part. It can also survive without water for weeks and weeks and weeks. It can go dormant when it's dry, and then when water is added back to it, it can then almost wake up and expand when it's rehydrated. And some mosses have been dry for 50 years. And when they've been rehydrated, they've had water added back to them, they've started growing from scratch again, which is pretty incredible to me. And they can also help build a new world. So if there's a bare patch of rock, it will often be moss, which is the first life to move in, creating an environment which can then lead to soil forming and then more plants growing as well. So moss can do all of these three things. And here's some wonderful images of moss. And they'd be provided by a photographer called Des Callahan. And it just shows the amazing variation that we have. And moss belongs to a group of organisms called bryophytes. And there's about 20,000 different species of these bryophytes. And of them, about 13,000 are moss. And in the UK, we've got about 700 different types of moss. And in order to look at them more closely, we're going to have to get a bit smaller. So I've brought a shrink ray and we're going to make ourselves a little bit smaller. And here we are on some moss, but we're not quite small enough. So we're going to have to go a little bit smaller. And we're going to find ourselves here in amongst the moss. Now, what type of environment does this picture remind you of? If you were this small and you were looking up at these big bits of moss, what type of environment does that remind you of? So a few answers coming in. So a bit like a jungle or the Amazon rainforest. And those top bits, yeah, they do look a bit like coconuts. Another class has said, yeah, the film Avatar, jungle or forest. Uh, and another class saying jungle or rainforest. Rainforest and trees. And that's bang on. That's exactly what I think this amazing little micro environment reminds me of. It reminds me of a forest, but just on a much smaller scale. And my follow-up question then is, What does the forest provide for the things that live in it? So if you were to think about all the different things that live in a forest, what does the forest provide them with? Some great answers coming in so far. We've got food, shelter, leaves, a habitat, a home, oxygen, home, life, and also water. Yeah, those are all bang on. We've got another answer coming in. Yes, shelter, food, and water. Shelter is a really common one that's coming up, as is food and habitats, and oxygen. And you're right, that's exactly what the forest provides for the things that live in it. And it's also exactly the same for what the moss provides for the organisms and living things that call it home. So it provides a habitat, it provides shelter. It can also actually be used as a nesting material for some birds. So some birds can take some moss and use it to help build their nests. And just like when a tree falls in a forest, and that can then be eaten by decomposers, when moss dies and decays, it then also becomes a food source for other living things. And moss can also help stabilize surfaces, and it can also help retain water. So it can help regulate the flow of water and then support new plants to grow. But I want to have a look at this in a bit more detail. So we're going to leave this photo behind and we're going to go to a brilliant drawing that I'm showing you now from some amazing resources by Dr. Andrew Chandler Grabat, who I will talk about a little bit at the very end. But here we can see a zoomed in diagram of some moss and the creatures that live on it. And here in this blue circle, we can see some creatures called rotifers that are attached to the moss. And here are some things called tardigrades, and they might be looking for a rotifer to eat. And then here is a hungry looking mite that can eat both tardigrades and rotifers. And I've got some microscopic images of these creatures, and I'd like to see if you can identify them. So what do we think this creature is? Do we think it is A, the rotifers? Do we think it is B, the tardigrades? Or do we think it is C, the mites? Which creature do we think this image is? We're very, very fast this morning. So lots of answers coming in saying B. And yes, you are correct. This is a tardigrade. And just like the moss that it lives in, tardigrades can almost completely dry out and then reanimate when they are hydrated again. So it's a great adaptation for living in moss, which can also dry out. So that's an image of a tardigrade. What do we think this is? Do we think this could be a rotifer, A, or a mite, C? And I might rotate it to give you a slightly better idea. Well done. Very, very fast again. Yes, this is a rotifer. And rotifers' outer coats look like clear glass. So that means that they're usually transparent. So you can actually see their organs. And that means that you can see the color of the food that they just ate. Just imagine if we were completely clear and we could see inside our organs and see what we just had for breakfast. It'd be quite strange. Okay, and then this means, what do we think this creature is? Yep, your thinking caps are well and truly on this morning. Yes, this is a mite. So they're the biggest out of these three creatures, and they've got sharp mouth parts for eating because they can eat both tardigrades and rotifers. And they've also got very, very thick skin to reduce water loss if the moss dries out. So here are the three pictures of the creatures we were just speaking about. We've got our mite, letter C, then we've got our rotifer, letter A, and then we've got our tardigrade, letter B. If I was to put these in order of what eats what order of letters would I have? Okay, so uh, one class had said B eats A, so the tardigrade eats the rotifer, and then C can eat B and A, so the mite can eat both of them. Another class has said C, B, A, and one class said A, B, C. And I'm getting slightly confused by all of these different letters coming in, but this is the correct order. So the tardigrades can eat the rotifers, so B can eat A, and then the mites can eat both the tardigrades and the rotifers. And this is what they look like in real life. Obviously, they're not all the same size. The rotifers are the smallest, and then tardigrades are a little bit bigger, but not much. And then our mites are much bigger. And this is just one example of the amazing kind of food chains that we can see in this incredible environment, this amazing microhabitat called moss. And I just actually want to focus on one of those amazing creatures that lives in moss. And that creature that I just want to focus on for a moment is this, the tardigrade. And they were discovered in 1773 by a German naturalist. And that naturalist called tardigrades Kleine Wasserbar. So a little bit of German this morning. So they called it Kleine Wasserbar. Do you think that means little water bear or little water lion? What do you think Kleine Wasserbar means? Little water bear or little water lion? Lots of answers coming in, and you are all saying little water bear, and yes, you are bang on. When he was looking down his microscope and he saw them, even though they actually have 8 legs rather than 4, they reminded him of a little bear, and so he called them little water bears. And even though these are tiny microscopic creatures, they've got some incredible abilities. So as I've already said, they can actually dehydrate when the moss dries out, and then they can completely reanimate when they are rehydrated. But that's not all. Now, when we go into space, um, we have to wear special suits. And can anyone tell me what these suits allow us to do, or what do these suits provide us with when we are in space? What do our space suits give us when we are in space? Lots of answers coming in. So they provide us with oxygen. Yes. They also, one class has said, allow us to stay warm. They give us heat. Yeah, they definitely do. One class said they help you stay in place. Yeah, you can have the astronaut is actually in a chair which has got thrusters on, which allows them to fly around in space. And one class has also said they provide protection from radiation. And you are bang on there as well. Yeah, they protect us from radiation. Now, our atmosphere protects us from radiation from the sun on Earth, but once we're in space, there is no atmosphere, and so we are exposed to much, much more radiation. And what's incredible about these tardigrades is that in 2007, um, some tardigrades were sent up into space. They didn't have a choice, they just got sent up into space. And so they were in a vacuum of space where there's no oxygen, and they were exposed also to lots and lots of ultraviolet solar radiation. Now, these tardigrades were dehydrated, so they didn't have really any water in them. But when they got brought back down to Earth and they were rehydrated, about 68% of them, so almost three quarters of them, uh, reanimated by the rehydration and then went on to live perfectly normal lives. And they also were able to have offspring. So they were able to survive in space for 10 days and then come back down to Earth, be reanimated when they were rehydrated, and then carry on as if nothing had happened. They didn't need a spacesuit, which I think is pretty amazing. And I've got a short video just to show you some close-up images of the tardigrades. This video is from a great YouTube channel called My Microscopic World, which has got loads of great videos of things down the microscope. So let's have a look at some tardigrades. Okay, so you could see some really amazing tardigrades there, and you could also see some rotifers as well, and you can see their clear skin, and you can also see the insides of their stomach and what they had been eating. So what I wanted to do now is just take a bit of a small step back and think about moss's role in the environment. So they provide a habitat to all of these amazing creatures, and they provide them with shelter. When the moss dies and decays, it can be a food source for rotifers, which are then eaten by tardigrades and then can be eaten by mites. But moss itself also plays a really important role for the wider environment, and humans have also interacted with moss in lots of different ways as well. And I've got another question for you. And this question is, what can moss help with? Do you think it can help with preventing flooding? Can it help with healing our wounds? Can it help with sleeping? Can it help with cleaning water? Or can it help with all of the above? What do you think? What can moss help with? So we've got quite a few answers coming in. Um, one class has said B, wound healing. Everyone else has come through saying E, all of the above. And yes, you are correct. Moss can help with all of these things. So sphagnum moss, a particularly absorbent type of moss, that can soak up to more than 8 times its own weight in water. And so that can be really helpful with preventing flooding when there's a really big downpour of rainwater. The moss can soak some of that up and slow down its flow so that it reduces the risk of some areas being overwhelmed by the water quickly and therefore flooding. So it's really great at helping to slow down the flow of water and prevent floods. And because of its absorptioncy, it's actually also helpful in wound healing. So sphagnum moss was used as wound dressings during the First World War when there was a shortage of cotton bandages. And its natural absorbency and some antiseptic qualities made it an ideal alternative for treating wounded soldiers. And Scotland actually played a very important role in that. There was an Edinburgh surgeon who organised the collections of moss throughout Scotland. And then people actually working at the Royal Botanics in Edinburgh were able to help identify which mosses were best suited to act as a dressing. And these moss dressings were actually made in Edinburgh and Dublin before being sent off to the soldiers. And they would dry out the moss and then it would become incredibly absorption. Moss can also be used to actually make soft bedding. So in the past, people have used it to make bedding for them to sleep on. Lots of creatures, birds especially, can use moss to help them make their nests. And moss can also help with cleaning water, but this does heavily depend on the cleanliness of the water to begin with. So we can't really use it as a one-stop shop for filtering all of our water. But if you're in a clean area, if you're out kind of in nature or Upper Munro or somewhere like that, and the water's already quite clean, then moss can help clean that water even further. So it can do lots and lots of amazing things. Now, a bit earlier on, I said I would just give a mention to Andrew Chandler Grevat. So for teachers joining us, he's got some incredible resources called the Moss Safari, which you can access for free. Here's his website, and you can go and do lots of amazing moss activities, and it's definitely worth a look. So that's almost it from me. I've just got a few questions though. The first question, can you tell me the name of anything that lives in moss? Can you tell me the name of any of the creatures that we've spoken about that lives in moss? And we've got, yeah, mites. That's definitely one of them, and also one of the easier ones to spell. I appreciate that tardigrades and rotifers are much harder to spell. But yeah, you've said tardigrades, rotifers, and mites. And there's lots of other creatures that live there as well. Spiders can live there, and things called springtails can also live there. But those are some of the main creatures that can live in moss. Thank you. Um, Next question. What can we think of some mosses as a miniature version of? What can we say? They are like a mini what? Yes. Lots of you coming in saying that they're like a mini forest, a rainforest, or a jungle. And that's exactly what I think as well. I think it's amazing to think that we could be surrounded by thousands of tiny little forests that are on the pavements, on the walls, and all around us. And my final question for you is, based on what we've been speaking about today, what's your favorite fact or thing that you've learnt about moss? What's the thing that has stuck out to you this lesson? Is it one of their superpowers? Is it the things that live in them or what they can be used for? What's your favorite fact about moss? So we've got one class saying that, yeah, we like that it can help with healing wounds. Yes, it really can. And it's amazing to know that right here in Scotland, that played a really important role in that. Um, Tardigrades can go up to space for 10 days, and moss can help sleep. Yeah, moss is incredibly soft. Moss is also used by indigenous people in Canada to wrap babies because of their antiseptic and absorbent properties. Yeah, that's really fascinating. Thanks for sharing that, Kat. Moss has got loads of amazing properties. We haven't had a chance to talk about them all today. Um, Lots of different creatures in it. It can clone itself. There are lots of different types. Yeah, there's 700 different types of moss in the UK. And remember, they belong to a bigger family of things called bryophytes. And there's 20,000 different species of bryophytes in the world. Thank you for sharing all of those answers. So hopefully today you got a bit of an introduction to some of the amazing properties of moss. We've looked at the world inside it, and then we've spoken a little bit about its role in the environment. And we hope that you feel inspired by today's lesson, and we would like you to use what you've learned to investigate the mosses in your school grounds. And you can also try and find out what happens when you add water to dry moss. And Nicola's going to be sharing a really exciting resource that you can use to help you with that. As always, we always look forward to seeing all of your amazing work, and it's especially good to share with us so we can showcase some of it during Friday's assembly. So please make sure that all work that you want to share with us is sent in by 2 p.m. on Thursday, if you'd like for it to be included in our assembly. And please share anything you are doing for Natural Scotland Week on social media, and we will share your posts from public accounts at our assembly. And we would always, as always, very much value your feedback on our live lessons. So please complete the short feedback form that Nicola's just shared with you. There's space for teacher and pupil voice. Tomorrow, we are going to be heading to the Royal Botanic Gardens in Edinburgh. We're going to go behind the scenes to find out how they are helping protect Scottish plant species and how you can use persuasive writing to help protect nature. And we really hope that you can join us there. But that's all from me. Thank you so much for all your brilliant answers. It's been lovely working with you this morning. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you all here back tomorrow morning. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Bye.